east. I'll call you in the morning and tell you what the sunrise looks like.
All right, so let's get started. Thank you all for coming to our first virtual Sarasota chapter meeting. And we're doing this as a meeting, so while the speakers are talking, I'm going to ask, it was nice to chat, but let's everyone go on mute. So in case of dogs barking or sirens in the background.
Okay, you want to do that now?
Well, you're going to talk, so you can wait.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the Zoom controls are at the bottom of your screen if you need anything. Feel free to chat. I'll be monitoring the chat box. And we'll be taking questions at the end. So you can raise your hand. Let's see, how do we raise it? I think the three.
There's a little hand thing there somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's at the bottom somewhere. I've got so many.
You know, this works.
There's reactions. You can say yay or nay. Where did the raise the hand go? Anyway, so anyway,
the hand.
And then at the end, if you have a question, unmute yourself, and I'll see if you're unmuted. Then I'll call on you. Okay. All right. So I think that's about it I needed to say at the beginning, other than welcome. And I'm just your moderator, and I'm going to turn it over to our president, Erica Timmerman.
Well, welcome everybody, and it's good to see you virtually. I just got back from a long trip, and so I'm glad to be home and glad to be able to come to this meeting. I had to miss the last one. We don't have any outstanding news to talk about at this point, unless somebody has something they would like to announce. Bruce, do you have anything that you wanted to talk about to the group?
Just a sec here. Yes, I have a lot, but I wasn't really prepared, so.
Oh.
I'm gonna maybe let that slide until the next meeting, but we're working with Conservation Foundation on a new inventory. Maybe Debbie will talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Up in the Upper Myakka. I think that's really exciting for us. And we have, you know, a significant donation, private donation to do work on Tillandsia utriculatus, giant wild pines, giant air plants, to look at the population genetics around the state. So that's pretty exciting for us.
Oh, yeah.
That would be very interesting. So we'll be interested to hear more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any business that they need to bring up before we introduce our speaker?
I'd just like to make one announcement that 2 years ago, your organization gave our church meeting at the Quakers $250, and we built a garden with that, and that is now affording us a place to meet. We met for the first time around the garden, and it was very sweet, very nice. And we all at the Quaker meeting want to thank you for that grant.
Oh,
Well, thank you for letting us know about it. And would you be able to send pictures? Send some pictures online?
I think Fran's already taken
I can do that.
Yeah, that would
thank
be
you,
great.
Fran. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we could, I mean, we know that you did, that you had a great plan, and we know that you completed it, but it would be nice to see after a couple of years how it's grown. So that would be lovely.
And I think it's wonderful that it's giving you a place to meet now with all the outdoor space is key. So
exactly.
Yes, it was really nice. We met at 4 o'clock, and it was a beautiful evening meeting. So it was nice.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, the only other thing that I would like to mention before we introduce our speaker is that next month on the 16th, there will be another Zoom meeting by Tom Heitzman will be speaking about native plant gardening 101 and beyond. So that would be something that will be a really good program to tune into. And then the field trip will be at Sweet Bay Nursery the following Saturday on the 21st at 9 a.m. And I don't know yet if he is going to be limiting the number of people that can come to the field trip. But he'll let us know more about that, and we'll let you know before, well before that time. Also, Karen wanted me to say that the field trip for this weekend is already full. So I guess you'll be notified if you are, well, you probably already know if you're part of that field trip. Yes, at Johnson Preserve.
But you can visit it on your own if you want to see it too. So.
And one more thing, I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I think Debbie's probably going to talk about this, but I want you all our Manatee County folks, please vote for Water and Land. And if you have questions, you can slide your thing around. If you need to see, vote for waterandland.org. If you have any questions, and find us on Facebook. All right.
Very good.
Okay, Fran, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Yeah, sure. I'm delighted. Okay, I'm getting in the light a little bit because it's getting dark out here. First, I want to say that I live up the street, down the street from the Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast. And it's just a beautiful place with beautiful people doing great work in conservation, which is so important these days. There's probably nothing more important than conserving land, because that way we conserve the plants, which we're about, the animals, and it mitigates against climate change. So anyway, these folks are to be appreciated. Debi Osborne has been with the Conservation Foundation for quite a few years. Hold on, let me get to my notes. She, hold on a second here. Print all this out. She's been working on conserving land. The phrase these folks use is save land forever and protect wild places for kids and grown-ups. And by doing this type of conservation, we assure ourselves of clean water, protected habitat, and beautiful natural places to recreate, walk, hike, fish. So this is a person, she has worked for Audubon in the past. She's a graduate of Harvard University and has just been doing this her whole life. So we are just so delighted to have her speak to us. So here she is, Debi Osborne.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here and meet many of you. Some of you I know, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm going to try and share my screen, and I hope I do this right.
Yep.
So you see it. Okay, great.
And just one quick thing, folks, you can move your, put your cursor and move your, if you're on a computer, you can move the row of people anywhere you want on your screen. So on any bottom top side. Okay, thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Karen. So I am the Director of Land Protection for Conservation Foundation. I have been doing land conservation for 30 years. And I have moved down to Florida 7 years ago and fell in love with the resources here. And but what I do know is it is a race against time. And so what we really need to do is, is it moving forward? There we go. So what I want to talk to you about today is, in general, what land conservation is, why we conserve land, which are many of the things that you know personally is probably the reason why you came to Florida and you love what you do and why you love native plants, and how we save land. So a large perspective, we are losing about 5,000 acres of natural land a day. I mean, that's huge. And while there's a little over 715 million acres conserved, you can see it's lumped a lot out west and our few national parks and such, but there's a lot of the country that still is available and vulnerable. Here in Florida, we've protected over 31.5% of the state. Again, federal lands, state lands, local governments, as well as private conservation. But 31% is great, but there's still so many more incredible resources that do need to be conserved. Looking county by county, we see that Sarasota County is also protected about 31%, but Manatee is only protected 13%. And it's one of the reasons why we need this initiative that I'll talk about a little later that Karen mentioned. Our other nearby counties are doing relatively well along the coast. And inland is a little tougher, but Charlotte County has 40% of its lands conserved. A lot of that are state parks and state national wildlife management areas. So Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast is a regional land conservancy. We work from Tampa Bay to the Everglades, primarily in the 5 coastal counties of Manatee, Charlotte, Sarasota, Lee, and Collier. And we focus our land protection work on waterfront, and that can be salt water or our rivers and tributaries. Imperiled habitat, wildlife, connectivity, and unique public access. We've protected over 18,000 acres since our founding in 2003, and that's about 46 properties. Some are in multiple locations, but the numbers on the map are the properties that we've protected. Again, and I've cut off, I'm sorry, part of Manatee. We've been doing more work up in Manatee recently, working with Phelps Audubon Preserve to protect that property. And we've also protected land down in Collier County. So why conserve land? Well, in Florida, what's most important is water. Water, water, water. And it's the water we drink, the water our wildlife lives in, and it's the water we play in. But without water and without understanding the uniqueness of water in Florida and how it needs to flow, we do so much damage to our land and to our wildlife. So why we need conserved land? It's protecting our water. The critical tool is protecting the land that buffers it and that cleanses the water before it enters into our rivers and our bay. So that's why a top priority for our organization is protecting waterfront property. But it's also, as I said, where we play. Tourism is an important economic driver in our Manatee and Sarasota counties, as well as our entire region and state. And so not only our economic vitality for tourism, but also agriculture. And we still do have working ranches and working farms in Eastern Manatee and Sarasota counties, and of course, further east in our adjoining counties. And it is an important part of the land ownership that has protected the land so far. And we're looking at ways to be able to continue to protect that by working with these private landowners that continue to provide rural working lands. And of course, we love our wildlife, and we too love to get out and recreate. It is important. There are so many studies about children and our own health, the benefits of being out in nature, not only physically, but mentally. And the more land we can conserve, the better it is for all of us. But also, the resiliency of our communities depends on conserved land. Our food security, having the availability of our food, clean air and clean water does depend on protected land. Our communities come together in the parks, in the places where we can gather. And haven't we found that out during this COVID experience, where everyone really felt that being stuck inside wasn't helping their mental state, and they were able to get out and walk into their community. They may have seen their neighbors for the first time. It is an incredible part of our community, the central parks, the community gardens, any of the other opportunities that give our community a sense of place. And often that is the natural landscape, the places that we want to be, the places that remind us of our history. It's all about land protection and conservation, and really the equality of accessibility to resources. Land protection is a critical tool to help there. So what we know is that social resilience is the ability of groups or communities to cope with external stresses and disturbances as a result of social, political, and environmental change. Whether it's COVID, climate change, a hurricane, all of those are benefited with land conservation. But as I said before, while 31% of the state is protected, that means 70% is not protected. And we get about 1,000 people a day, and they aren't only coming to the already built community, they are expanding, as we know in our counties here, eastward into the green fields, out into our natural lands. So with more and more people, if we don't protect what's critical, and this is one of John Thackston's calculations, if we don't protect what we need to protect in the next 20 years, it will be gone. That's about the time frame we have, 20 years. At the rate of development, maybe we don't even have that in our counties. And we don't want to just have the piecemeal properties. They're important, pocket parks, community gardens, but we need connectivity, not only for us to have trails, but for our wildlife to have those corridors, those important corridors. And so those remaining places that connect existing protected lands is a critical focus of land conservation. And as I said, we need to be strategic about what we conserve. And we recognize that climate change is happening. We see it every day. We recognize that we're behind the 8 ball on land conservation because we can't just protect the properties where wildlife live now. We need to be able to connect those corridors so that they can adapt, so that they can move, so that the wildlife that's coming here from further south, our species can move further north. So we know that we need to be very strategic and look at a network of resilient places so that we think long-term and not just protect what we need to use now. We need the foresight to continue to find the most important places that are remaining so that we have these resilient places into the future. It's the only way we're going to be able to protect the diversity of our wildlife. So looking at the wonderful maps that are available in Florida, so I'm sure you've gotten onto the state's the CLIP or the FNA, the Florida National Inventories of, you can look at rare species, you can look at our ecological greenways. There's a lot of focus on the greenway that goes up the spine of Florida, and that's absolutely critical. But we have important greenways and connections along the coast as well. And it's important, and we're glad that actually the universities and FNA and the state are looking at what they would consider a second tier or third tier corridor. For us, it's a first tier, connecting Duet to Mayaca, to Babcock, down to the Everglades. That is our connection for the wildlife that need to be able to traverse our region. And so we're looking at those connections and the special places that do support the rare wildlife and even the common wildlife that make our part of Florida so unique and wonderful. So we need to be strategic, again, to find those connected, resilient habitats to protect the diversity for wildlife and plants. So how do we save land? There's really a couple of ways. The big one is you can own it. Then you have to manage it. And so I'll talk more about these in a bit, but ownership is the predominant way that people think about land being conserved, your parks, your preserves. But we are also very critical tool is conservation easements, and I'll talk more about those. Either the lands that are acquired, purchased, or conservation easements can be bought outright at fair market value, and that takes lots of money. They can be purchased at a price below fair market value, which is called a bargain sale, and the landowner receives some charitable tax deductions and cash, or they can be donated. We love donations, donations of lands and conservation easement, and we've been very fortunate to have gotten some wonderful conservation easements donated of late. But all of those tools are essential if we're going to protect those last remaining critical places in the short amount of time that we have left. The reality is that it's often a combination of these tools, purchase, conservation easements, in partnerships that are essential to get these properties protected now while they're still available. And we also look at not only the large landscape scale acquisitions and land protections, but also community conservation. So let me talk about all of these in a little bit more detail. So ownership. Fran mentioned that she lives near our offices at Bay Preserve in Osprey. I welcome all of you. The building's closed right now, but the park is open. It's open to the public every day unless we have an event, but we aren't having any events right now. So it's open to the public every day from sun up to sundown. It's where Sarasota crew practices. We are on Little Sarasota Bay. We do have a historic house from 1931. And our interesting connection, it was we call it the Burroughs Matson House, and it was donated by the Shearer Burrow family, and it was the family that Elsa Shearer Burrow, her father, or actually in addition to owning this land on the Little Sarasota Bay, they owned the land. After her husband died, she could no longer take care of her ranch farm and donated to the state, and that became Oscar Shearer Park. So we are connected historically to Oscar Shearer Park, and it's wonderful that the first owners cared about conservation, and the last owners, the Matsons, did sell this property to us at a bargain sale. So they got some money, they got tax benefits, and we were able to get a grant from the Florida Community Trust, which is part of the state funding Florida Forever program in the old days when money was flowing. That's why it's open to the public. Another piece of property that we have owned is 230 acres down on Pine Island in Lachey Pass that we also acquired with a Florida Community Trust grant, and we are working on getting that open to the public. It's adjoining 190 acres of Lee County Preserve, and we will be the point of access for both of those, as well as the Blue Way along the waterway. And many of you are birders as well as native plant specialists. And so maybe you recognize that little bird there in the bottom. It's the snowy plover. Conservation Foundation was donated a little over an acre of land on Siesta Key, just north of the public beach parking lot. And we manage that with Sarasota Audubon. They are actually our managers during nesting season, which is summer. So of course it's prime tourism season. Because we own that acre of land, we can rope it off, and Audubon volunteers keep people from trampling on these tiny little birds and on their nests. And we are one of the most prolific fledgling sites for the snowy plover. And there's only about 200 nesting pairs left in Florida. So that's the type of land that we are fortunate enough to protect. We did just acquire on September 30th, 363 acres at the headwaters of the Myakka, adjacent to the Flatford Swamp Preserve, which is owned by Swiftmud, the water district. And we own 7 rivers and streams come together, and 2 of them come together and form the Myakka right on this property. It's a very special piece of property. We're really excited about working with Selby to get a plant inventory for that property. We already know that there are some endangered and perilled plants on the property. So we own these properties. That means we take responsibility for managing these lands that we own. We develop master plans on what we will, how we will manage them into the future. And we raise funds for stewardship and endowment to ensure that we are able to protect these lands into the future. So there are lands that we own about 7 properties now, but many of the properties that we've helped acquire, we've transferred to other public agencies, whether it's Sarasota County or Manatee County, state parks. There's a number of different projects and ways that we work in partnership with other entities to own and manage the land. Then they too have to come up with the money to protect and manage the properties. And one of the lands that we just finished protecting in a very wonderful partnership that I believe many of you were supporters on is the 5,777 acre Orange Hammock Ranch right there in the city of Northport. Was top priority for 20 years to conserve. And we put it on the Florida Forever list. And finally, we worked with Swiftmud, we worked with Sarasota County. Sarasota County was willing to come up with part of the money, but finally the state of Florida decided they would use $19.5 million of the Florida Forever Fund, the state funding pool, if we raised $1.5 million, which during the COVID shutdown, we were able to do that, raise the $1.5 million. The state bought it on May 29th, and it's going to be the state's newest wildlife management area managed by Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. They will be a fabulous partner, and it will be open to the public. And it too has endangered, imperiled dry prairie, and a real mix of really important native habitats. So another tool and a really important one is called conservation easements. And it is a legal agreement between a landowner and an organization that is qualified to hold a conservation easement, whether it be a nonprofit or a public agency, but it is a permanently binding, and permanently means forever, perpetual, to limit the uses on the property so that it connects so it protects the conservation values. Each conservation easement is written to be unique to the resources on each property. So it's a very flexible tool. It basically severs off the development rights and sometimes other rights so that the private property owner basically sells those away or gives those away. They retain some rights and they keep the right to own and manage that land, sell the land, pass it on to their heirs, pay property taxes, of course, but they can only do what is allowed within the terms of the conservation easement. And sometimes they will retain some building rights. Sometimes they retain the right for agriculture, for ranching, for timber. Sometimes they give up all building rights. Sometimes they work to protect just the resources, the natural resources that are already in place. So we were donated a conservation easement on Casey Key. It's the lot between the beach road and the Gulf. The house is across the street. So this whole lot could have been a house site. They gave away that building right. And since there's no lights there, there's native habitat. It's a very popular sea turtle nesting spot. We were given a conservation easement by Collier County, 1,500 acres on their Pepper Ranch Preserve. That's an important panther habitat area and part of the connection up to Babcock, where we now know the female panther is breeding and hopefully continues to, and hopefully will continue up into Myakka and Duet. And many of you know about the Triangle Ranch Conservation Easement. It's 1,100 acres just north of the north entrance of Myakka River State Park, with 3 miles of the Myakka River that passes through it. And the property, the ranch is on both sides. That owner, Elizabeth Moore, who's a big supporter of many, many conservation efforts in our region, bought the property subject to the conservation easement. She's allowed, there were 2 lots on the Clay Gully Road that were carved off. Other than that, she is allowed where the old historic homestead is to have a house and the existing house, and can continue to ranch the property, and is also allowed to do hydrologic restoration to improve the hydrology and protect the water quality of the Myakka before it flows into Sarasota County and the wild and scenic Myakka and into Myakka River State Park. That conservation easement we fundraised for, and Swift Mud holds that. The property adjoining it, we were able to get the U.S. Department of Agriculture Natural Resource Conservation Service to purchase a wetland reserve easement. And we're trying to buy and protect a number of properties along the Myakka with fee and conservation easement. So talking about partnerships, I'll leave the Johnson Preserve that you're all going to go visit. I'll do that second, but many of you probably also are big supporters, and thank you for the public support that we received to push the county commission, Sarasota County Commission, to transfer a conservation easement to Conservation Foundation on the 3 quad parcels just west of the Celery Fields. And is partnership with Sarasota County, Sarasota Audubon, and Conservation Foundation. The county continues to own the land. We hold the conservation easement, and Sarasota Audubon has a management agreement. So what will be allowed on these properties is the southwest quad. The county reserved a 6-acre building lot that they will be looking at a archive building and a history museum at the western side of that, closer to I-75 and the recycling plant that's out there. We'll be working with Audubon to raise funds to do revegetation of these sites. If we can raise a lot of money and get the county to support, we can do more hydrologic restoration and improve the water flow surrounding the celery fields. So we're looking forward to making these even more pleasurable to visit. And it's that type of partnership where you have an ownership by a public agency and a nonprofit holding the conservation easement and the management. Another example was the Braden River, the Johnson Preserve on Braden River. And this piece of property, many of you are going to go see on Saturday with Lee Amos, our land steward and biologist, and he does an amazing tour I believe he's a member of your group as well. So if you look at the Braden River, this is just upriver from where Linger Lodge is. And it was 4 building lots, 10 acres each, basically in the middle of a subdivision. The western parcel was owned by Carl Bergstresser, who passed away, and in his will, he left it to be conserved. We were willing to accept ownership of it, but the 3 adjoining properties were purchased by the Neal Communities. And we approached Neal Communities and said, can we purchase that land? And basically they said, sure, come up with money. We don't care if we get our money by developing it or selling it for conservation. So the surrounding community tried to work out a process where they could tax themselves and pay for the development. It didn't quite get enough support. So the Manatee County Commission basically said, we'll come up with $2 million. If you come up with $1 million, the remainder of the purchase price. And again, with amazing community support led by the Singer Johnson Foundation, who pledged a $500,000 grant. In 10 days, we were able to match that. And the county was able to purchase the land. They then gave us back a conservation easement on the land, and we donated to them the Bergstresser property subject to a conservation easement. So the entire 34 acres is owned by Manatee County, but we hold a conservation easement on it that ensures that it will always remain a natural preserve. And even if it's sold to another nonprofit or something, it can never be developed. It is there available for public access. And so I know you'll enjoy it. It has a variety of habitats and frontage right there on the Braden River before it flows into the reservoir that provides drinking water for the city of Bradenton. And community conservation is an important part of our job. The quad parcels was an excellent example of community conservation. We have a couple of others. We've been working with the Venice Area Beautification, Inc. to create the Venice Urban Forest and reforest the strip along the Venetian waterway. And we're hoping that the city of Sarasota will follow through with putting a conservation easement on the Bobby Jones Golf Club, which will be reducing the city commission voted to reduce from 45 holes to 27 holes. And the rest will be about 150 acres of wetlands restoration and improved hydrology to clean up Philippi Creek and become open to the public as a walking, as a park and preserve. So what was a golf course and only a few people were using is now going to be a resource for the community. And we're very excited about that. But community conservation, we're always looking for new opportunities. These are the ones that need to come to us. We don't know what the community needs. So if you're in a community that sees an open space opportunity, and again, there's so many reasons why it can benefit your community, provide a community garden, provide an open space for the community to gather. Perhaps there's a way that we can help serve a number of your community needs with a land protection project. So as Director of Land Protection, give me a call and we can see what we can do to help and see if we can, or see if we can refer you to someone else who can help you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about land conservation. There's lots of funding at the federal level and at the state level. We're hoping that we can get Florida Forever funding flowing again. The counties, and Manatee County is the only county on the Gulf Coast from Tampa down that does not have a dedicated funding source. So we hope to change that. And private investment. Land conservation has been aided very much by many of you who have continued to give donations to supplement and leverage these public funds. Historically, those of you who live in Sarasota know that we have a long legacy of conservation, which is why we have 31% of our lands in Sarasota County protected. However, that ends in 2029. We need to start thinking about getting ready for that public referendum so it gets expanded, and thinking about what the opportunity is, because right now it's pretty narrow to environmentally sensitive lands and low impact parklands. There may be more need for our working landscapes, some of the rural lands, more agricultural lands, because if we don't protect them soon, they will be gone. Recreational lands, more active recreation, and stewardship funding. When these public agencies always need stewardship funds, we want them to continue to have stewardship funds so that these lands continue to be open to the public. And then just quickly, the Manatee County Ballot Initiative, Vote for Water and Land, as Karen said, November 3rd, if you're in Manatee County, please vote. If you haven't already voted, it's going to protect water quality, habitat, provide parks. It's a $50 million ad valorem tax, which is only $2.40 a month. That's $29 a year. That's less than I spend in a lot of stuff. One night out for dinner, right? And it's for 20 years. So we are in a race against time. And Manatee County is going to have a significant amount of growth, particularly if they continue to extend eastward and develop their working ranch lands. The demand for drinking water alone is going to increase by 30%. And as we saw in the chart, only 13% of Manatee County is currently protected. There are so many opportunities, and so many opportunities that have been lost. So the time is now to protect these lands. This is what the ballot initiative says. It's long. Asking, do you want to have 1.5 mil added for $50 million over 20 years? And it does have annual public audits. And so what we want to make sure people know is there's strict accountability provisions that the lands can only be used on the funds, the purposes that are stated in the bond. And again, it requires this annual audit to make sure the funds are being spent appropriately. So get out, get involved, vote, go to the website. You can be a sponsor, and you can endorse it. You can write letters to the editor. Please spread the word. And they're looking for poll watchers. If you aren't doing anything during early voting and on the election day, they're looking for people to help with getting voters to support this. And wild places need you. I know you love wild places because that's what you do. So always we support you talking about conservation and how important the land is to protect all the important resources, our water and our wildlife. Do check out our website. We usually have really cool events. We're having but of course we're shut down right now, but we are having a neat, instead of our Wild About Nature Festival, where people who have kids or grandkids will go online. We have like a 40-page book of things for kids to do, and you can pick it up at our at Bay Preserve. And again, vote and advocate for land conservation at our counties, at our state, and at the federal level. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, so why don't you unshare your screen, stop sharing your screen, and that way we can go to our,
Oh, good. Yes.
yeah, and then we'll go to gallery view. And Bruce Holst has a question.
Well, not so much a question, but I want a comment that, thank you, Debbie. This was a wonderful way to initiate our season at the Florida Native Plant Society. I think it gives us a lot of great ideas to support. Not that we didn't already, but you know, I just think it's, I want to thank Karen and Fran and Erica and everybody for making this the first meeting. So thanks for your contribution.
Well, thank you, Bruce. And it really is, again, we love partnerships. I know that the Florida Native Plant Society has given us grants and has helped with their native plantings at Bay Preserve and others. And we love working with Selby to make sure we know what is on the properties that we own so that we can manage them appropriately. I'm so pleased that you get to see the Johnson Preserve, and we're hoping to get out and have more trips on some of the lands that we are acquiring when we can make them accessible to the public. So we look forward to seeing you out on the land.
All right. Oh, there's a question in the chat box.
Yeah,
Nope.
I wanted.
Thank you. All right. Fran has a question.
I just want to thank Debbie. It was just a wonderful presentation. And in these times of, I call it the bad news, it's just, it's really cheering to hear what is happening and is going to benefit us and our kids and our grandkids. So thank you so much, Debbie, for bringing this to us.
Well, thank you for inviting us. And again, I want to thank you for what you do. It's so heartening when I get to speak to people who are already so passionate, are actively involved in protecting what we have. It's special. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Questions? You can use your more button, and if you raise your hand, I can see it raised on the list. And I'm not seeing any hands. So,
Well, come out, and if you need a place to go walk around and just sit, watch a fabulous sunset, Bay Preserve at Osprey.
Beautiful.
It's free and open to the
Beautiful.
public.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
beautiful place.
Leah Wilcox is clapping, so thank you. Yeah, some of our folks don't have video. Bryce Claypool and Kids for Clean Water are both on. These are kids who are promoting through video. They're promoting the Vote for Land initiative. So awesome to have you kids on board tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, that's great.
Mason says, Mason Jordan, I'm with the Kids for Clean Water Club. My question for Ms. Osborne, what got you interested in preserving nature?
I grew up in Los Angeles, and blonde hair, blue eyes, great tan, they kicked me out. My parents, all our vacations were camping. I was a Girl Scout, and I just always remember being able to get out in nature. And when you live in Los Angeles, in the Valley in particular, you just leave and you go. And we spent our vacations at national parks. And what I didn't know was that there was a career in saving land. And it was actually through my volunteer work with the Sierra Club many years ago when I lived up in Annapolis, that I found out that, there was an organization, the Trust for Public Land, that was looking for someone to go out and help buy land. What a cool job. So I have my master's degree in city and regional planning, but I get to use that education to save land. It really is a lot of fun. I feel very lucky to have been able to have a career for my passion. Thank you for the question.
And that's a key. That's so cool, they said. Oh, they said to me, but I'm going to say it to you.
Well, Karen has been doing her passion too. Many of you have, Bruce, those of us, it's fun.
I was talking on a call a little earlier today with the Conservation Leadership Initiative with Florida Audubon, and they're getting students into Audubon chapters. And we realized that early childhood experiences in nature are what create this passion that makes makes your job and my job so effective, because we love it. And it's so important now.
Well, and I didn't even talk about our Youth and Nature program, which is a critical part of, and it's what Karen's has done for years, is getting that young generation just out in nature. They don't have to know everything, but definitely don't want to be afraid of it, right? And so just being able to get kids out and into the park, out into Little Sarasota Bay, to Triumph, to, you know, Oscar Scherer, Mayaca, you know, the canopy walk. For many kids, you know, that will shape their life forever. And so we're thrilled with being able to have a program. I know Selby does youth programming as well, to just make sure that the next generation, because I'm not going to be here forever. So we need to make sure that next generation, those advocates are here. We'll go backwards.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see the book that you're putting out for the, what's the name of the event?
Wild About Nature.
Wild About Nature. I've done that since the inception with Around the Bend Nature Tours, and I didn't know how you were going to do it this year. And wow, 40 pages. I'm going to come pick up a book and share it with my 7-year-old granddaughter. And yeah, we put some activities in from Sarasota Audubon, and yeah, it's really great. All the groups came together and put in different things you can do. So
It's all about
make
partnerships.
it virtual, a book or online version. So,
Okay.
is there a link? Do you know? Is there a way to get it online?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have so many printed out, but you can download it when it's done.
Okay, so it's not up yet. So go to conservationfoundation.org and you'll be able to find it
What? Yeah.
in the next month, right? The November 3rd, I think, is, or the
Yeah.
8th.
So it's supposed to be up, I believe, next week.
Okay. All right.
But if it's not, it's going to be soon.
After Halloween, you'll be able to get it. All right, great. Any other questions? Bruce, another one. Oh,
I just want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
really glad you came.
Great.
Yes.
Great
Thank
to
you.
have you. Yeah.
I don't want to say anything after that. That was really great. So when is Orange Hammock going to be open for visitors?
It'll be about 2-year planning process. FWC is looking for community input. They actually were, last I heard, they were looking to hire the staff who will be based down at Babcock Webb. So they are taking community from the input from the community. They've been reaching out to the landowners surrounding, and so they should be having some public. Everything's, you know, what they want to do is everything's taking longer than they had hoped, obviously. So it'll be probably about 2 years. One of the issues is access and how they actually get into the property and onto the property. So that's one of the things they're working on. It may have to be through RV Griffin.
Okay.
Bryce can't wait to go. For clean water. Yeah. All right, anyone else?
No, just.
This has been really great. It was really nice to get, you know, almost 30 of us together, because the November, December meetings are usually, the October, November meetings are usually pretty slim pickings. So it's really nice. I think we had more than we usually get at a October meeting. So really, thank you all for coming out.
Yeah,
So next
thank you.
Thank you.
will be
Come visit.
Knightsmen, and then we'll have a Sweet Bay Nursery trip, and that one, hopefully we can stagger folks. Maybe we can have different times or something, so more of us can participate. The thing with the Johnson Preserve is it's just so tight. There's, the trails are close, and so we had to limit to 15.
And there's very little parking
Mhm.
intentionally.
Right.
You know, I'll park at my house and walk over there.
Excellent.
It's only a mile.
Oh, wow.
Or bike.
Yeah,
Or bike, yes.
sure.
Oh, there's
Well,
Tom.
It's over in Braden Woods. It's just, between Braden Woods and River Club, isn't it? And down by Linger Lodge, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
As far as the November field trip,
There's Tom. Hi,
I think we'll
Tom.
be able to accommodate everybody and keep everybody social distanced.
Great. Wonderful.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you to Karen. A big thank you for making this possible.
Oh,
I
and
agree.
yes.
Thank you, Karen.
So this is possible because of Jean Doobie and her husband, Mike, who have donated
Oh,
their space on Zoom to several local groups. So,
oh,
so we can, if we get really big, we could do a webinar, but I really enjoy having all these faces here. So I'm hoping we can keep it this way. But Sarasota Audubon met last Monday and there were 124 people. So we were as a webinar, and it was effective that way as well. But this is really nice. We're a little homier group here.
right. Okay.
All right.
Well, Debbie, I want to thank you too, because you explained conservation easements better than I've ever heard it explained before. And I've always been confused about that. So thank you. That was very, very good. Well,
Hope to see you out on the land. Thank you for what you do.
All right. All right. Well, we'll be in touch about next month. And if there are any cancellations, we'll let you know if you're on. If you haven't been contacted and you want to be on a waiting list, email me directly. All right. And that link is in the recent newsletter. So, okay.
All right.